And we'll get started. Today's agenda, we will cover 5 things. We'll do 5 things. First, we'll cover the sector guidance for hotels and lodging. We'll talk about any opening requirements that you might have prior to opening, ongoing requirements once you're open, discuss febrile respiratory illness, and answer any questions you might have. With that, I will turn it over to Kim to talk about, to Christina to talk about sector guidance stages 2 and 3.
Good morning, everybody. Just another reminder, if you could please mute your phones. We're hearing some feedback, so that would be helpful. All right, so early May, the county health officer presented the attestation to the Board of Supervisors, which allowed us to move into stage 2.5. And so that was accepted by the state, and we moved into 2.5. So that's when we saw a few more things opening. And then we continue our phased approach of reopening. And last Friday, 12 more sector guidances were posted on the CDPH website. And we will be opening those sectors starting this Thursday, the 11th. And that includes you guys. Can you please mute your phones? We're still hearing some feedback. Just want to make sure everyone can hear us. All right, so this team here today is going to go over these guidances with you and allow you to ask any questions.
Oh, hi. I don't recognize you.
I'm sorry, can you please mute your phone? We're going to just go ahead and mute everybody. We'll unmute later. All right, thank you. So also we just want to make sure you know that what you're going to see today, we just want to keep the community as safe as possible. So we're going to follow these guidelines put out by the state and our health officer order, which they'll go over. But we do have metrics in place to know what the disease transmission looks like in the community, so that if we need to toggle back, we can. We don't necessarily want to do that. That's not our goal, but we will keep a very close eye on disease transmission so that we know what's going on in the community. And if we have to go backwards to 2.5 or 2 or even 1, which we don't want to do, but we are ready and paying attention to that data. So with that, I will let Kim go over the opening requirements.
Yeah, just a quick note. I think one of the questions that we got quite a bit, and Dr. Eric Sergienko answered this morning at the Board of Supervisors, is what stage are we in? What phase are we in? And we commonly refer to it as 2.98. So many of the sector guidances that you see, including hotel and lodging, we're part of phase 3 for the state. I'll just use phase, so I'll keep using the same word. We're part of phase 3 for the state. However, due to the fact that we attested to our capacity to test, we had a lack of cases, we were allowed to move into activities that are generally in phase 3. We are still in phase 2.98, we'll call it that. The state has not released anyone to phase 3. However, we're allowed to do phase 3 activities. Yes, it is as confusing to us as it is you. However, if you take the phase out of it and just say these are the sectors that are allowed to move forward, our date will be the 11th of June. We will move forward with these sectors, just knowing that none of the, I think what Christine was talking about was, none of the moving forward or moving back has permanence. As an example, in Laskin County, they had a cluster of activity. They actually had to revert back to curbside food only and close their dine-in restaurants. And so instead of thinking it as a one-way trip, it can toggle back and forth. It's a sliding scale. So worrying about what exact phase we're in really isn't, for us, a necessity. It's worrying about which sectors are open and are we meeting the guidelines for those sectors. With that said, I will turn it over to Kim to talk about the guidance for the sector.
Okay, so there will be some opening requirements. First, you'll need to get to your normal permitted operational conditions. So anything that was required through inspection, you have to get back up to speed. Then you'll need to have a written worksite specific plan for COVID prevention, and you should designate a person to implement this plan. And once your plan's created, you'll need to train and communicate the plan with all of your staff, as well as any changes that might be for your guests so that they know what to expect when they arrive. You'll have to regularly evaluate your plan to make sure that it's being complied to. And then we have some individual control measures and daily screening requirements that we'll talk about a little bit later. And the recommendation is that you only book, and this is for hotels or lodging that has multiple rooms, not necessarily a single VRBO rental or Airbnb, but something that has multiple rooms. We recommend you do 25% of your room capacity for the first week. So if you have 10 rooms, that'll be what, 4?
2.5.
Yeah,
2.5.
2.5 rooms. And then if you have, and the second week, the room capacity at 50, so 5 of your rooms booked until you get, till you can ensure that there's a 24-hour vacancy between each room.
I know this was the question, about 24-hour wait between a person checking out and the next person coming in. The health officer has said that if you don't have to hold the 25%, as long as you can schedule so that when someone checks out of a hotel room, that you do not go in to clean it for 24 hours. The health officer's order around that is designed to help the droplets and any particles settle or dissipate so that when the housekeeping cleans the room, it's safer for them. So I'll go on to that piece now. So establishments shall publicly post detailed description of actual cleaning and laundering practices. Housekeeping staff at a must wear disposable gloves and face coverings. I will stop here for just a second. In most of the guidance from the state, they recommend quite a few things. In just a few lines of the state guidance do they require it. Face coverings for housekeeping is a requirement, is one of the only requirements for face covering in the county. I know other counties have required face covering. We do not in Mariposa County, but for this hotel staff, they must wear face coverings. They must perform a thorough cleaning in high traffic areas and frequently disinfect commonly used surfaces and take measures at reception desks and other areas where physical distancing cannot be maintained, such as plexiglass or other barriers. Again, very broad, plexiglass or barriers doesn't have specific, here's the height or size. I will tell you that if you have questions around this, and I'll have my email at the end, our Public Works Department has ordered some for county businesses. That's a plexiglass shield. I think it's 36 inches high, 36 inches wide, and has a small opening at the bottom. We can send out that link to you if you need it so that you can order something like that for your front desk. Now, for the question of all questions, what does rooms must be left vacant for 24 hours prior to cleaning for health officer's order mean? That is a health officer order that's in addition to the state guidance. It is a health officer order that will be replicated in the park and the surrounding gateway communities so that Madera will have the same, Tuolumne will have the same, Mono will have the same, Yosemite will have the same. It was a recommended push from the hotel industries and the state. We put a health officer order in. So I talked about what it was. It's designated to allow you to have a room rest for 24 hours prior to cleaning it. Makes it safer for the housekeeping team to go in there and clean a room. Now, with VRBOs, if you rent a VRBO, you must also have the 24-hour period before you can go in and clean. So we do understand this causes issues for some of the reservations you may have. There must be 24 hours after a hotel room is occupied before you can clean it and occupy it again. If that order is not followed, the risk you face is your hotel will have to be quarantined for 14 days, or your VRBO will have to be quarantined for 14 days to make sure that there's no health risk. I think one of the biggest conversations we had this call yesterday was as a county, we have moved forward through all of these sectors, whether we opened up dining, we opened up businesses, we opened up churches, we opened up restaurants, our goal is to keep everyone safe. So our goal is not to abuse businesses or hurt businesses. Our goal is to make sure that as we have this measured approach, you can see we have one of the lowest rates of COVID in the state. We want to continue to work together to have that same low rate. This activity of lodging is the highest risk activity the county will have taken so far. We're inviting people that are outside of our Mariposa bubble, so to speak. They come from other parts of the state, they come from other parts of the nation, and shortly they'll be coming from international spots. They'll be coming. Our ability to do our best to follow these guidelines allows us the greatest chance to be successful in mitigating COVID in Mariposa and allowing us to move towards further activities, higher phases or stages and keeps us from moving back. And so I know this is a tough call, but like we've done through all of these stages, we're committed to it and we've done a really great job as a community. Now for some specific questions about occupancy. As Kim talked about, if you have a house where you live in and there's rooms, you cannot rent them. It must be an unoccupied dwelling in order to rent them. When we talk about occupancy of 25%, it does not talk about the number of people. It talks about hotel rooms only. So if you have a one-room cabin and it holds 10 people, you may have 10 people staying there. But once they leave, you have to wait 24 hours before someone else comes in. If you have 20 rooms in a hotel, then after 24 hours, you can have people come in, but occupancy of 25% would be 5 rooms and 50% would be 10 rooms, etc. So if you have specific questions, the last slide, now when we get there, I'll leave it up on the screen for quite some time, is our email addresses. We answered quite a few specific questions yesterday because each of you has a very specific lodging scenario. And I see a couple questions already popping up. We'll go ahead and continue through this and then answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so in addition, there's other ongoing requirements. Here's a few, but there's some more details in the guidance, so it's really important you read through all of it. Some of the are, make sure you have signage to remind employees and customers of physical distance. Maintain distancing in all eating areas by placing tables at least 6 feet apart. Eliminate self-serve breakfast or meal stations. Try to encourage dining in the room if possible or wherever possible. Take measures at reception desk and other areas where physical distancing can't be maintained to install a barrier or a plexiglass. And then limit the number of individuals riding in elevators or shared or in small spaces. Also, we'll need to provide temperature and symptom checks or symptom screening for all workers at the beginning of their shift. We'll require workers and encourage the customers who are sick or exhibiting symptoms to stay home. And customers should be screened upon arrival for any symptoms or fever. And also you have to frequently disinfect commonly used surfaces, credit card terminals, counters, reception areas, any place where multiple people will be touching. There'll be new cleaning and disinfecting requirements required. You'll have to launder all bedding in the unit, whether it's used or unused, between each guest. Guests and visitors should be screened upon arrival and use hand sanitizer or wear a face covering if possible.
So yesterday, one of the questions that we received quite frequently was around this bedding used and unused and dishes used and unused. Yes, all bedding in a room must be laundered between guests, including dust ruffles and sheets that you may have. In addition, if you have a VRBO and you have dish sets in the house, you will need to wash all the dishes, even the ones that were not used. And really it's about thinking if someone's in a location for a period of time, they're breathing or talking or that the particles go out and then they settle. And they don't necessarily settle on the things that you just sat on, but they could settle anywhere in the room. And so part of the cleaning process is allowing the 24 hours, but then taking everything that was in the unit that could be washed and washing it to make sure that you have the safest,
Every time.
the lowest risk possible. This, make no mistake, lodging is a high risk activity for Mariposa County. So when you hear these guidelines like washing all laundry or washing all dishes, it's not intended to put a burden on you as a owner. It's intended to make sure that you have the ability to stop the spread of the germ as broadly as possible. The other thing I wanted to talk to you today about, and Dr. Eric talked about it, Dr. Eric Sergienko talked about it at the Board of Soups, is OmniServe and Verily are two testings. Verily, it's a mobile testing site that's in Yosemite National Park on Wednesdays. And OmniServe is from Tuesday through Saturday. Today we have 52 people scheduled to be tested. They can actually handle 132. And we want to use this site because it's a huge benefit for our county. If we don't use it enough, they may leave. So we're trying to avoid that. But more so than that, we in the Health and Human Service Agency, most of us test every 2 weeks. We would recommend the same for you and your employees, that you encourage all employees to get tested once every 2 weeks. And the testing process is free. You can go online, you make your appointment. They'll ask you for insurance information. However, they'll bill your insurance, but if your insurance won't pay, they do not bill you. It is free to you always. This is a really good way, especially it would be good to have your employees tested prior to opening if possible. And then after 2 weeks, have them tested again to make sure that the steps and stages that you've put in place are actually effective, so that we can avoid any clustering in the county and any cases that we can. Now, during Kim's presentation, she talked about screening employees. There is a febrile respiratory illness screening. You enter your name, the date, whether or not you have symptoms, whether or not you've been around people that have symptoms. And this information is collected at UC Merced by Dr. Nunez down there, who's an epidemiologist. So, had really trouble with those words yesterday. So, and then what will happen is, if someone has a positive test, she will notify not only the county, but will notify you in your location to check on that employee to make sure they're okay. This surveillance of symptoms is not done on the specific level. We're not looking for someone. We're more looking broadly for clusters in Mariposa County. If people have similar symptoms in an area, it alerts us as quickly as possible. And as we've learned through this whole process, the more information we can get and the earlier we can get it, the more successful we've been in contact tracing and just making sure that we have cases that don't spread widespread. So that is, and this screener will be on the Mariposa County website. You can use it. Your employees can use it. It is free. And again, if there's any questions on that, we're happy to take those now. I do have some, we are actually at the question stage. So I'm going to unmute. Let me answer the question on the screen first and I'll unmute. So we have a vacation rental listed as VRBO. If we already have reservations booked back to back, do we have to cancel those reservations? Yes, at this time we would ask that you cancel so that you have 24 hours between someone checking out and then cleaning the VRBO. So a question from JL, we need to check units after departure to make sure negligent acts are not left unchecked, stoves being left on, water running, etc. We need to make sure these dangerous, wasteful situations are not left unattended to after a guest departs. How can we manage this if not allowed to enter a unit for 24 hours? Seems to be a serious potential fire hazard. The magic number is within 6 feet for 10 minutes. So if you have a quick check and you can wear a mask and gloves, I think it's a great idea to make a very quick run through. It should not serve as you cleaning the unit, but you certainly can go in for safety's sake and make sure that the unit is not left in disrepair or anything left on. You really want to make sure, and I think the question has come up about the difference between someone in a restaurant and the difference in the hotel is hotel, you tend to be there longer. So when you go in there, be there shorter. So the quickest you can make a checklist, get in, get out, the better. Wear a mask. Again, all of these are higher risk type scenarios. So, but you want to make sure your place is well. If B&B has a separate owner, living quarters, locked off from any guest access, is this acceptable barrier to operate? Yes.
Yes, the residence, or unit, let's see. As long as it has a separate exterior entrance and exit that does not require the use of shared facilities and is otherwise unoccupied, can be considered an unoccupied unit.
So I worked for environmental health and safety for Kaiser Permanente in San Diego for 7 years. In the hospital's highly infected rooms, the whole time before cleaning was only a few hours. There was never a 24-hour even for the most infectious diseases. The 24 hours just to go and clean is too much. The state recommended 3 hours to go in and clean and 24 for the next guest. The state recommended 24 to 72 hours. 24 hours was the minimum, and the state Hotel Association also recommended 24 hours. I will tell you the difference between the two, in my humble opinion, is a hospital room is built of sterile type materials. A hotel room is built of much cloth. And there's a difference between the germ or infection landing on a hard surface as opposed to sheets and carpet and drapes, etc. And what I will tell you is this 5-county consortium all had the same answer to it, which was they all agreed that 24 hours was the best. They used the state CDPH guideline, they used the state Hotel Association guideline, and they made it a public health officer. Thank you for your service with health and safety. We all have different expertise. We all have different opinions on this one. Those health officers are the guiding hand that will go by.
And just to add to that, the PPE that's required to go into a highly infected area would be required to go in and clean the rooms, or not highly affected, but you would need the PPE that's necessary for healthcare workers. So this is an idea to help preserve some of that PPE.
That's where the 3 hours is what she's talking about. So this, when the state said 3 hours, it's if the housekeeping staff is wearing full PPE, and we just don't have the means to do that if we're going to protect our healthcare workers appropriately.
Yeah, that was addressed at the Board of Soups this morning. It would require an N95 respirator, a gown, gloves, all the things that are in very short supply. If we were to have a surge in the fall, we would need those supplies to make sure that we could handle any surge capacity in Mariposa County. The 24-hour gap between reservations is not mandated by the state and our northern counties. What reasons do you have for making this policy mandatory in our county? So I will let you know, JL, that it is going to be a health officer order in all 5 counties around Yosemite National Park. It is a public health officer order, and it's not mandated by the state, but recommended that it goes between 24 hours and 72. As I mentioned in the beginning, our health officer, we have used his guidance through this process to have a very low rate of spread, and this is how he's shared with the Board of Supervisors to set up a health officer order, and we'll move forward with 24 hours. I understand, so the safety concern, but seems unreasonable. We have an open lodging, so I think it might be a little too quick to say something is not reasonable if we haven't opened hotels yet to see what rate of spread. I think with all the things that we have done in the county, we've always used a 14-day incubation period to see whether something has had bigger cases or lesser cases. I will tell you that there are quite a few counties in California that have opened up that are seeing more spread of COVID. They're actually going in the wrong direction. Like I mentioned before, Lassen had to close their in-house dining and go back to curbside. So I think the prudent approach is the approach we'll continue to use. We will work with the owners as much as we can to make it work for you, but this is how we'll be moving forward. In addition, with the late warning, we got the sector guidance on Friday. As soon as we get it to us, we get it to you. It is our understanding this is not a typical epidemic. It is a pandemic that we don't fully understand yet. A great source for help understanding what we're up against is The Great Influenza by John and Barry, written in 2018. Thanks. My Airbnb is inside my house. I have 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I share the bath, living room with my guests. I'm assuming I am not going to either be allowed to host or do I feel, agree. You are not allowed to host. You can vacate and rent, but you cannot cohabitate. Oh, you answered it already. Who can we call about this? Let me actually get to. So the best spot is you can either call 209-259-1332. You can email mariposacovid19@gmail.com, or you can email any of the 4, jlynch@mariposahsc.org or Kim Keith with K Keith at mariposacounty.org. If you forward to us, I take them to our public health officer and get answers to the ones that I don't know. You can send them to me, or you can send them to the mariposacovid19@gmail.com. They all go to the same place. So you'll get answers. Thank you for taking it to an email, because we can answer specific questions for your property easier than trying to broadly talk about it on these calls. How fluid are these restrictions? My best advice on this one is if you think back to March, when you think back to stay-at-home orders, and you think back to talking about phase 2 not being till July and phase 3 not being till September, but here we are in phase 3 activities in June. They're fluid, and they're fluid like I talked about in the beginning, simply because the longer we have the ability to mitigate activities in the county, that increases our ability to move forward with less restrictions. So they're fluid. Everything seems written in stone the day you say it, but it's only good for the short future. And like I said earlier, with all things, there's a 14-day incubation period. So after the 11th of June, when we open up hotels, by the 25th of June, we'll be assessing where we're at. So I will just tell you, we'll continue to share information with the county, Jonathan and his team, Jonathan with tourism, and Scott with Chamber of Commerce, to make sure that we get it out to you as quickly as possible.
Do you see if cases do not increase?
Same question.
Okay.
What communication are being provided to NPS that via real concern? I'm not sure if I understand your question. You can email me. We're doing this in conjunction with the park. I'm going to go ahead and.
I'll link to their press release.
Destroying people's financial lives is a lot worse than catching a flu. May I clarify? A room may rent the same day as cleaning, or does that 24 after the cleaning occurs as well? No. If we wait 24 hours to clean the room, you can rent it. How can we stay up to date with the most current requirements? Like I just talked about, I will make sure we get them out to the chamber, we get them out to tourism,
Posted online.
and they'll post to the Mariposa County website. We'll always have the most up-to-date information. I'm going to go ahead and take us off mute if anyone has.
Good people.
This one right there.
Joe, is that you talking?
It is.
Hi, Joe. I asked a question about the NPS. If there's homes inside Walona that are VRBO and they make reservations and they're working consistent with the guidelines that you're providing there, what communications my question was, what communications are being made to the park that those guests will be able to get inside?
The park opens on the 11th.
I guess, Kurt, that's a great question. So I think the question is, if you don't have a reservation for the park, but you have a reservation for lodging in the park, how do we make sure? Kurt, I'll have to get an answer for you.
We have an answer.
Oh, you do? Oh, we do have an answer.
Yes. So you have to, upon showing proof of your reservation and matching photo ID at the entrance station, you'll be issued a vehicle permit to enter the park.
So I've heard that, and I guess I would ask if you could clarify what's an acceptable form of proof of the reservation? I mean, what would the VRBO guests need to print out? And in providing us that guidance would be helpful, because I know there's several VRBO members inside Walona. That would be helpful.
Is there a confirmation when somebody books a room? Do they get a confirmation or a receipt from you?
So I'm not a VRBO expert, but I can find that out on our own. But I just know in the last few days, as there's been discussions of the park opening up on the 11th, there doesn't seem to be a lot of alignment with the ranger station and the kiosk there about what they're going to accept. So it might be helpful if your team could help us by at least relaying the message and confirming if it's a printout of their confirmation on VRBO, that we want to just make sure that's going to get them access into the VRBO inside the park.
Hey Kurt, if you could send me an email at jlynch@Mariposa HSC so that I can email you back and then find out where you think it's best distributed. If you send it to me, I will get an answer for that.
I will do that right now, Joe. Thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, no worries. What's that?
The question,
Go ahead.
if we're using a HEPA filter, would that not make the 3-hour mandatory vacancy after vacuuming unnecessary? There's no budging on the 24-hour. Regardless if you have a HEPA filter or not, you still will need to have the room vacant for 24 hours before cleaning.
Places on the fire.
Okay, Mariposa County will be laying off many of its employees. I wonder where they'll start. I can assure you, as the person that runs finances here, we're going to do everything possible within our power to make sure that doesn't happen. So trust me, it'll be the last decision we want to make, but I don't want to just allow your question to go by unanswered. We have the green light from the county to open our short-term rentals on the 11th when the park opens. Yes. Now that the Mono County, Tuolumne are all opening on the 12th at midnight, we're opening on the 11th. We're hand in hand with the park, so we want to make sure when the park opens, we could be open. We're going one day earlier than state recommendations.
Boy.
Any other callers on the line or in chat? Jonathan, is there anything you wanted to ask or say?
I just want to say thank you to everybody there at the county, from Dr. Surchenko to Siobhan Kathari, Joe, your team, Kimberly, Christine. I can't recognize all of you, but this has been a really difficult path for all of us to lodging, and we know that many of these restrictions are difficult for the lodging community to easily accept, but we also have been ready for these, I think, in many ways. We've had draft guidelines out. We're appreciative that the guidance is adaptable or adaptive. And if anyone has any questions on the call for lodging, we're working with the county and working with the park. You can always email me at jonathanf@yosemite.com. We're here to help you as well. But thanks for all of your efforts.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Jonathan, can you say your email again, please?
JONATHAN, Jonathan, and then the initial F for Farrington at yosemite.com. I'll type it into the chat.
Thank you.
Question from David Greenwood. We have a hot tub at VRBO. Do we have to drain it? You don't have to drain it, but they shall remain closed at this time. I'm not sure of the distinction between a pool and a hot tub. I just know that for now the state has said that they cannot be open. Okay, the 25%. Yeah, regarding how to close and block them off. I'm not sure, David. I'm not a hot tub expert. Blocking them off or drain, I'm not sure covering. To K, 25% is a death sentence. It's only a guidance. If you can open your facility and maintain 24 hours between the guest checking out and the next guest checking in, then I wouldn't worry about the 25% occupancy. That 25% was designed to help you start scheduling. 25% the first week and then the 50 after that was help you schedule. But as an example, if you had 80% occupancy on Friday night and 20% occupancy on a Saturday night, and you had 24 hours between rentals, that's okay. As long as you have, it's not if you're in a room, it's not that piece of it, it's the 24-hour piece of it. The 25% was more of a help you get started percentage and not necessarily you can only open 24% or 25%, I'm sorry. It's the 24 hours that's important. What are the requirements regarding pools?
Their operations with swimming pools and splash pads should take additional steps to ensure those facilities are properly cleaned and disinfected for visitor use. Note that saunas, hot tubs should remain closed. Proper disinfectant levels need to be maintained. And in the guidance itself, they're specific what those need to be. And then also set up a system so that furniture and equipment like lounge chairs that need to be cleaned and disinfected is kept separate from furniture that's already been cleaned and disinfected. And then launder towels and clothing according to manufacturer's instructions. Discourage people from sharing items and ensure the facility has adequate equipment for guests such as kickboards, pool noodles, and other flotation devices to minimize sharing wherever possible. And then consider changing the deck layout in other areas surrounding the pool to ensure that the standing and seating areas can support physical distancing requirements. So that could include removing lounge chairs and or taping off areas to discourage use.
Just saw from Holly Webb. Thank you, Holly. She said the NPS has just confirmed directly to her that they will be notifying lodge owners today on how their guests will get access to the park on Thursday. And to Alton, are the hot tubs closed even if only used by one family at a time for VRBOs? Yes. I anticipate that'll be the next sector, one of the next sectors that opens. I don't know when that part of the sector will open or stage will open, but at this time the state has not allowed hot tubs to be open.
Yes or no? So close the hot tub.
What are the guidelines? I'm not sure, JL. If you email me that, I can see if I can't get an answer from the doctor for you on that one, if he has knowledge of what chemicals. Typically, the state guidance on chemicals is what we typically refer people to.
We have an EPA guide, COVID approved.
So the EPA has guidance for COVID approved materials. I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for you today. My comment applies to operators inside the park. Correct. So I think, thank you, Holly, for that clarification. Yeah, so the lodging to get into the park notification is only for those lodges or VRBOs inside the park. If we wait 24 hours, we need to use masks and gloves.
Yes.
Yes. Face coverings, glove masks, but not the N95 respirators. Regular masks that we've been using. There were 365. I'm not stopping people from driving cars. There's the non-essential travel ban currently at the state that we're requesting them to relax. We've just sent a letter today from the Board of Supervisors, including the Public Health Officer and the Yosemite Gateway community partners, to the state to ask them to relax the non-essential and essential driving ban. So, yeah. I would never stop people from driving cars. Yeah, so we'll let you know when that changes. We'll send it out, obviously, if there's a relaxation. So, comment? Yards, so we heard news that Yards will be operating shuttling guests from outside the park. Will the capacity of those buses be limited? If so, by how much? Yes, Yards and Transportation has its own guidance. I have not read it. I'm not sure what the capacity of
I
the
don't
bus
know what
will.
the new capacity is, but they are cutting capacity, on the Yards buses.
All right, so let me go over the contact information. While 22 passengers and will require a reservation. Thank you, Jonathan, for Yards. Contact information again, the phone number 209-259-1332 for general questions, or you can email mariposacovid19@gmail.com. And in addition, the 4 email addresses that you see on the screen, which for those of you on the phone, you can start with J Lynch, that's all one, at mariposahsc, all one word, .org. Will get you to me, or K Keith, KKEITH at mariposacounty.org. And then for anyone out there, if you want to find any of this sector guidance, you can either go to the Mariposa County website or covid19.ca.gov/roadmap-counties. Each of the sector guidance, if you look at them, will have the date that it was stamped at the state. So if you see one with a new date, you know it's new. So ours will always be the most updated. And Diana said, thanks, excellent information. Thank you so much for navigating those vacation rental owners. Yeah, we will do our best to continue to help navigate. And if you have issues with things like hand sanitizer or just questions to help you get open, please send them to me or send them to Kim. We will forward you to the right location. We'll help wherever we can. Our goal is to get you back up and running. Our goal is to get the park back up and running in a safe manner. And we will do this together. And if you ever have questions, just forward me. After yesterday's call, I received quite a few questions about specific properties and was able to help where I could. And if I couldn't, I got Dr. Eric Sergienko to give me the answer. So we're here to help. It seems that when folks make reservations, they should warn them that they need a reservation. Yeah, so let me read that slower. It seems that when folks make reservations to stay with them, we should warn them that they need reservations to enter the park. They need reservations to ride the bus, etc. Yes, I agree. We'll give that information both to Jonathan and Scott with the chamber and make sure that we have good information for people trying to come to Mariposa.
And any damage that they cause, you have to pay for. Okay.
Awesome. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you all for your time today and joining us. Again, send us questions that you may have. We'll do our best to answer them for you. And happy opening on the 11th.
No.
Second of all, he has a